Hello and welcome to all you lovely Puffin readers. I'm Sophie Kinsella and I'm here to read to you from my book Mummy, Fairy and Me, which is illustrated by Marta Kissy and has so many lovely pictures in it. I really hope you enjoy the story. And I'm going to start reading today at the beginning, Meet Mummy, Fairy and Me. Hello, I'm called Ella Brooke and I live in a town called Cherrywood. I have blue eyes and dark brown hair. My best friends at school are Tom and Lenka. My worst enemy is Zoe. She lives next door and she's my not best friend. She looks mean even when she smiles. You'll meet them all later. And this is my mummy. She looks normal like any other mummy, but she's not because she can turn into a fairy. All she has to do is stamp her feet 3 times, clap her hands, wiggle her bottom and say, marshmallow, and poof, she's Mummy Fairy. Then if she says toffee apple, she's just Mummy again. I love it when she's Mummy Fairy because her wings shimmer like hundreds of rainbows. She wears a silver crown that shines like starlight. She can fly in the air and turn invisible and do real magic. Plus, she's just bought a new wand that's really cool. It's called the Computer Wand V5. It has magic powers and a computer screen and an extra fast magic button. Most fairies have computer wands nowadays. They have fairy apps and fairy mail and even fairy games. Mummy sometimes lets me look at the apps and games if I've been good, but she always turns off the magic function first. My Auntie Jo and Granny look like normal, just like Mummy, but they can turn into fairies too. Auntie Jo has a Computer Wand V5 just like Mummy's. She can work the computer screen very fast and she knows every single spell code. Auntie Jo is very good at magic. She won Best Spell at the Fairy Awards. Granny won't have a computer wand because she doesn't like anything that goes bleep. She still has an old-fashioned fairy wand with a star on top. She says it's never let her down yet, and she won Best Spell at the Fairy Awards with it 3 times in a row and lots of other fairy prizes. Mummy hasn't won any fairy prizes. When she's not being a fairy, Mummy is a boss in an office. That means she tells people what to do. Mummy is very good at doing that. She's also very good at telling bedtime stories and singing songs in the car. She's the best mummy in the world. But she's not very good at doing magic. You'll soon find out what I mean. All the girls in my family turn into fairies when they're grown up. So one day I will too. I'll have sparkly wings and my own computer wand. I can't wait. Mummy calls me her fairy in waiting. I'm not allowed to start magic lessons yet, but I'm trying to learn anyway. Every week, Mummy has magic lessons from Fenella, her fairy tutor, who talks to her on FairyTube. I watch with her and try my hardest to remember all the spell codes. Mummy tries very hard too. I'm sure she will get better one day. When Mummy is not being a fairy, her computer wand just looks like a normal phone, which is good because it's a big secret that Mummy's a fairy. No one must ever find out. I'm not allowed to tell anyone, not even my friends. Ollie is my little brother. He's only 1 year old and he can't turn into a fairy. Everyone says he looks like me, but he doesn't because he's a baby and I'm not a baby. He can't even speak properly. His favourite word is wheezy, wheezy, wheezy. And here's my daddy. He can't turn into a fairy either, and he can't do magic. He says he can park the car instead. FIXERIDOO, the fixing spell mix-up and the fairy dust. It began on Saturday morning. We were having breakfast and Ollie grabbed the milk jug. "Careful, Ollie," said Mummy. There's no point saying careful to Ollie. He waved the jug around and it splashed on the table. Put it down, I said. I tried to get the jug, but Ollie wouldn't give it to me. Give me the jug, darling, Mummy said to Ollie. She tried to take it from him, but Ollie hugged it tighter, like a teddy. Mummy pulled his hands off, but Ollie grabbed it again, and suddenly the milk was all over the floor. Ollie said, "Wheezy, wheezy, wheezy." Mummy said, "He doesn't know what he's doing." I think he did know what he was doing. The milk glugged all over the floor, under the chairs and into the corners of the room. "Never mind," said Daddy. "I'll pop to the supermarket." "That will take too long," said Mummy. "We need more milk right now." She stamped her feet 3 times, clapped her hands, wiggled her bottom and said, "Marshmallow!" And poof, she was a fairy. Every time Mummy turns into a fairy, I gaze at her. When Mummy is a fairy, she's sparkly all over. She has beautiful shimmery wings, and when they move, they send little breezes around. Even her smile is more sparkly. Mummy Fairy took her phone out of her bag. As soon as she touched it, it started to glow and grew into a computer wand. "Are you sure about this?" said Daddy. "Of course I'm sure," said Mummy Fairy. "You know I'm getting better at magic every day." Daddy muttered something, but we couldn't hear him properly. "What?" said Mummy Fairy. "Nothing," said Daddy. "Go ahead." Mummy Fairy pressed a code on the screen, bleep, bleep, bloop, and then waved it and said, "FIXERIDOO!" At once, there was a cow in our kitchen. A great big brown cow with a bell round her neck. "Oops," said Mummy Fairy. "I don't know how that happened." "Do you know how to milk a cow?" asked Daddy. "No," said Mummy Fairy. "Of course I don't." "Moo," said the cow. The cow tried to walk round, but there wasn't room. So she flicked her tail and knocked all the apples out of the fruit bowl. Then she broke 3 of Mummy's favourite cups with the pink flowers. "Stop that!" shouted Mummy Fairy, and she steered the cow away. Then the cow pooed on the floor. "For heaven's sake," said Daddy. "I'm sorry," said Mummy Fairy. "I'll try again." She pressed a different code on her computer wand, bleep, bleep, bloop, and shouted, "Milkery-doo!" for the 2nd time. The ceiling started to rain on us. It was brown rain, and it went everywhere, all over our hair and our breakfast. I licked the rain off my chin, and it was yummy. "It's chocolate milk," I said. "It's raining chocolate milk. Yummy! Can we have this every day?" "No, we can't," said Mummy Fairy. She looked up crossly at the brown rain. I didn't want chocolate milk, and I didn't want a cow. I just want a bottle of milk. Stoppery-doo! The rain stopped. Then Mummy Fairy pressed another code, shouted, "Away-doo!" and the cow disappeared too. Daddy sighed. He squeezed some chocolate milk out of his hair. "There's too much magic in this house," he said. "But it should have worked. I don't understand what's going wrong," said Mummy Fairy. "This computer wand is brand new. It has an extra fast magic button." She pressed the button on her computer wand and it bleeped. "Shall I try again?" "No," shouted Daddy. "I mean, why not go to the supermarket? We need to buy some other food too." "But the supermarket is very slow," said Mummy Fairy. "And I'm very busy today. I've got lots of things I need to do." "More haste, less speed," said Daddy. "What does that mean?" I asked. Daddy replied, "It means if you hurry too much, things will go wrong, especially if you use magic." Daddy can't do magic or fly. He says, if you want to fly, Why not get on a plane like normal people? But Mummy isn't normal people. She's Mummy Fairy. When we got to the supermarket, I saw Tom and Lenka. "Hello, Lenka," I called. "Hello, Tom." Tom was pushing the trolley to the till for his mum. Tom's always doing kind things like that. There was a lady doing face paints, and Lenka was having her face painted like a butterfly with silver glitter. "Can I have my face painted like Lenka?" I asked. But Mummy shook her head. "Sorry, Ella, no time, come on." We ran up the cereal aisle, and Mummy grabbed boxes of cereal. We were going so fast that Ollie laughed and waved his hands, as if he was on a baby theme park ride. At the apple counter, they were doing an apple tasting. But Mummy said, "Sorry, Ella, no time, come on." We rushed around the supermarket with our trolley like runners in a race. Ollie sat in the front, and Mummy sang, "Ollie in the trolley, Ollie in the trolley." But when we reached the checkouts, Mummy stopped singing. She looked cross instead. There were so many people. They were all standing in lines with full trolleys. One man was buying 100 packets of soap powder. Tom and his mum were leaving the shop with their bags of shopping. Tom saw us and he called, "Good luck, we had to wait for ages." "Honestly," said Mummy, "let's speed things along." I wasn't sure about that. I said, "Do you remember what Daddy said? He said, more haste, less speed." "Well, I have a lot to do today," said Mummy. "We need to hurry up." We went behind a rack of baked beans where no one else was. Very quietly, Mummy stamped her feet 3 times, clapped her hands, wiggled her bottom and said, "Marshmallow!" And poof, she was a fairy. Quickly, she pressed a code on her computer wand, bleep, bleep, bloop, then pointed it at herself and said, "FIXERIDOO." Then no one could see her except me. I can always see Mummy when she's invisible, because one day I will be a fairy too. Mummy Fairy pressed another code on her computer wand screen, bleep, bleep, bloop, and pointed it at the lady at the till. "Speederidoo," she shouted. At once, the lady loading her shopping started throwing things quickly into the trolley. "There," said Mummy Fairy, "that's a lot better." A pineapple landed in the trolley. Thud! A bag of crisps landed. Crinkle! A barbecue landed. Crash! After a minute, Mummy Fairy said, "Let's speed things up even more." "Isn't this fast enough?" I said. "The faster the better," said Mummy Fairy. She pointed her computer wand at all the ladies and men at the tills and pressed the extra fast magic button. "Speedery-deedery-doo," she shouted. All the ladies and men started throwing things quickly into their trolleys. They went faster and faster and faster. "Mummy Fairy," I said, "I think this is too fast." Eggs flew through the air and landed. Smish smash! Bottles of lemonade thumped down and exploded. Fizz whiz! A chocolate mousse fell on the floor. Split splat splot! Food was flying everywhere. The old man in front of me got a stinky cheese on his head. One lady got broccoli stuck in her ear. Ollie was covered in baked beans and he laughed and laughed. A tub of ice cream landed, splat, and someone's dog ran in super fast and started licking it up off the floor until a shop lady chased it out. Then the lady at the till started throwing the soap powder packets into the trolley. Boom, boom, boom. They all burst open. Everything was covered in a big white powdery cloud. All the people looked like snowmen. I wanted to laugh, but I felt worried too. Everyone was running around and screaming. Mummy Fairy looked very alarmed. "What do you think, Fairy in waiting?" she said to me. "What should I do?" "Use the FIXERIDOO spell," I said. I learned about the FIXERIDOO spell from watching Mummy's magic lessons with Fenella on FairyTube. The FIXERIDOO spell is the spell you use when things have gone really, really wrong. But it's so powerful that the fairy rulebook says you can only use it once a week. Do you remember how to use it? I asked Mummy Fairy. Of course I do, said Mummy Fairy. She pressed a code on her computer wand, bleep, bleep, bloop, and waved it. FIXERIDOO, she shouted. But nothing happened. FIXERIDOO, shouted Mummy Fairy again. FIXERIDOO! Food was still flying around in the air. A pork pie hit me on the head and I shouted, Ow! Ella, I can't fix it. Mummy Fairy looked very worried. Help! The FIXERIDOO spell is easy peasy, I said. I wondered if Mummy was using the right code. Mummy finds it hard to remember all the magic spell codes. She says her head is too full of other things, like raising a family and holding down a job. What numbers are you pressing on the computer wand? I called. 459, said Mummy Fairy. She looked very flustered. Isn't that right? No, that's wrong. It's 499, I called. Press 499. Oh, said Mummy Fairy. Now I remember. She pressed the code, bleep, bleep, bloop, and said, FIXERIDOO, please, please. This time it worked. Everyone slowed back down to their normal speed. The gooey eggs flew through the air back into their shells. The chocolate mousse slurped back into its pot. The baked beans marched back into their tin, one by one. Well done, Mummy Fairy, I said. You did it. No, Ella, said Mummy Fairy. You did it. You're going to be a brilliant fairy when you grow up. And she looked so pleased with me that I felt a little glow of happiness. The people weren't fixed yet. Some were shouting and some were crying. One lady was lying on the floor yelling, Help! Help! The eggs are alive! Time for some fairy dust, said Mummy Fairy. Mummy Fairy keeps her fairy dust in a secret pocket inside her handbag. She took out a handful and sprinkled it, all silvery shiny, over everyone. Fairy dust is very clever. It makes you forget all the magic you've seen and everything that has happened. For 10 seconds, all the people in the supermarket were very still. They'd sort of gone to sleep. Then, go, said Mummy Fairy. And they all woke up. The supermarket was calm again. Everyone was smiling. And our trolley was at the front of the queue. Mummy Fairy quickly stepped behind a pile of tins. I knew she was going to become visible again. Where's your mummy? Said the lady at the till. You're not alone, are you, little girl? Oh, I said, of course not. My mummy is, well, she's... Here, said Mummy, appearing beside me. She wasn't a fairy anymore. Her shimmery wings had gone. She was just Mummy, and she winked at me. Oh dear, what is Ollie doing? Ollie had his thumb in his nose. He pulled out a baked bean and smiled and said, Wheezy, wheezy, wheezy. And then he ate it. On the way out, we passed a cafe. The sign said, Special cherry muffins, today only. I love cherry muffins. So I said, Mummy, can we stop and have a cherry muffin? Mummy opened her mouth, and I knew she was going to say, Sorry, Ella, no time, come on. But then she closed her mouth. She thought for a moment, and then she said, Yes, my love, let's sit down and have a cherry muffin. You deserve a reward for helping me out. When we got our cherry muffins, we sat at the table in the cafe. Lenka and her mummy walked in too, and Lenka said, Look, Ella, I'm a butterfly. You look amazing, I said. Then I added, did you see anything strange in the supermarket? Strange? Said Lenka. No, there was nothing strange. And she went to sit down with her mummy. I wanted to tell Lenka how I'd remembered the code and saved the day, but I couldn't. Being a fairy in waiting is hard sometimes. Mummy squeezed my hand, and I knew she understood. Well done, Ella, she said, and gave me a little secret smile. Mummy had a cup of coffee, and I had hot chocolate, and Ollie had apple juice. I could see some silvery fairy dust in his hair. Mummy gave me my drawing book and pens, and I started drawing a picture of all the flying food. As I drew, I was thinking about being a fairy. I said, Mummy, do I have to be a fairy when I grow up? Mummy looked surprised. She said, no, Ella, of course you don't have to be one. But would you like to be one? I thought about the cow pooing in the kitchen. I thought about the chocolate rain and the woman with broccoli in her ear and all the people screaming. I didn't want to make pooing cows and flying broccoli. But then I thought about remembering the right magic code, and it made me feel really pleased with myself. Yes, I said, I do want to be a fairy. I will be the most awesome, super cool fairy in the world. And I smiled at Mummy and I ate my cherry muffin.